Today we've got a roundup of some new desk and home office tech I've been testing and using lately in preparation for some changes I'm making to my setup. Got a really fun list ahead of us today, so let's just get straight into it. First up on the list is an update to a longtime favorite of mine. This is the BenQ Screenbar Pro. I've had the Screenbar Plus in my setup for the last several years, and it's honestly become one of the most indispensable pieces of my entire desk. I'm a big sucker for lighting, even outside of making videos, and having some ambient light in your desk setup is so helpful, and having this form factor as a monitor light bar is probably the best option I've ever tested. The changes to the Screenbar Pro are pretty subtle, and I think that's a good thing. You don't want to mess with something that's already working really well. The biggest differentiator here is you don't have a separate remote to be able to control the brightness and the color temperature and all of that sort of stuff. It's actually built in on the top with capacitive touch buttons here. Outside of that though, the operation is largely the same. You have the option to change the color temperature from really cool to really warm. You can change the brightness. They have added a few extra features here though, which is really nice. They have kind of a motion sensor setting that'll turn it on and off if you're coming or going from your desk. I think that's really nice because I tend to leave this on. I'm getting up and about going around my apartment throughout the day, so I can just kind of keep this on forever now. You can also have the option to save, favorite settings. They claim an average of around 5,000 lux for brightness, and that's across the board for all of their light bars. It does seem like this one is quite a bit brighter than my Screenbar Plus though, which is a really nice addition. They've also made some updates to the mount for the monitor that I think are really nice, and it's a little bit more stable. Comes in black or silver at a price of $139. Definitely a little bit steep, but the quality is there. I've been using one for years and literally can't go without it now. If it broke, I would absolutely buy it, the minute it died, to make sure it's here with next day prime shipping. However, I do know that there are some lower priced options around Amazon. I haven't personally tested any of the budget options, but if you have recommendations, leave them in the comments down below for other monitor light bars. I'll do some research between now and the video going live to see what I can find and put some links down below. Next up, this is the MOFT sit stand laptop desk. This is a really great alternative if you don't necessarily want to switch out your setup to a full-fledged standing desk like I have. I'm a huge fan of having the standing desk. Being able to change up positions throughout the day I think is incredibly helpful. This kind of offers a lot of that functionality, but in a much smaller footprint and a much lower price point. If you have a particular desk that fits your room aesthetic and don't necessarily want to change it out, or if you don't want to spend all of the money on a big standing desk, or if you want something that's portable, if you work remotely really often, I think this is a really compelling choice. You have quite a few different options for positioning here. This is kind of the full standing position option as I have it set up here, but you also have kind of the normal laptop riser stand with positions at 25, 35, and 45 degrees. You can also use this at a 60-degree angle to hold up a tablet if you want to use it as an additional tablet type of stand. And of course this folds completely flat down, so if you want to put it in your backpack or put it in a suitcase to travel with, it's a little bit heavy to be able to travel with it, but it's definitely, far less than carrying around a laptop or something, and obviously way less than a standing desk. Really cool option though if you want kind of an in-between, if you're interested in standing desks but aren't necessarily sure if you're going to use them and don't want to spend all of that money up front. This will be a great way to test that in addition to the portability. Next item up, we have the OBSBOT Tiny 2 Lite 4K webcam. OBSBOT was also kind enough to sponsor this week's video, so a huge thanks to them. Last year's Tiny 2 webcam from OBSBOT ended up on quite a few best webcam lists. Their new Tiny 2 Lite packs a similar image quality with a way lower price point and a smaller, lighter weight body. Going over some of the basics, it's a 4K webcam with a 1/2-inch CMOS sensor. It can shoot and record at 4K 30 frames per second or 1080p 60 frames per second and has built-in AI auto tracking. That's really just the beginning though. I've been testing the Tiny 2 Lite for the past few weeks and it is loaded with a ton of really useful features. The auto tracking utilizes the deep learning neural network from the original Tiny 2. It's really smooth and accurate and also has built-in zoom that does an amazing job. Between that and the autofocus system, it's super easy to embrace kind of a set it and forget it mentality during a meeting or call if you move around a lot or like me and tend to over gesture. The companion OBSBOT Center app opens up a ton of customization options as well for framing and picture effects like image filters, retouching, background blur, and bokeh. On top of this, there's some really simple gesture controls if you're away from your desk and want to zoom in or reframe your shot. You can also shoot horizontally or vertically depending on what platform you're using, and all of these can be customized and saved with productive preset modes, so there's no need to readjust if you want to switch between streaming on TikTok or Instagram and then immediately go into a work meeting or call. I was honestly pretty skeptical before trying the webcam. As laptop cameras improve and features like continuity camera become available, it's harder and harder to find something that is a worthwhile investment or upgrade. As you can see though, the image quality is really impressive for something at this size and price point. It holds up well under less than ideal lighting conditions, but even with just some basic lighting and prep, you can get this thing looking really great. There are also dual omnidirectional microphones built in with adjustable noise cancellation. I found them to be plenty serviceable at a desk distance like this, and better than most people have for any sort of work meetings or calls in terms of photo and video. I think this would make a perfectly adequate, setup for streaming on Twitch or Instagram, TikTok, anything like that. The Tiny 2 Lite has definitely made a permanent spot within my desk setup. If you want to learn more and pick one up for yourself, be sure to check the links in the description down below. Huge thanks again to OBSBOT for sponsoring this week's video. My mechanical keyboard obsession continues. Next up, we have the new Keychron K2HE. This is a fully hot swappable mechanical keyboard, but if you notice the HE in the name, that stands for Hall Effect. The magnetic Hall Effect switches have become extremely popular for gaming applications, but I think they have a place in just about any type of situation. So a typical switch just kind of has an on or off, depending on if it's pressed or not. With the analog magnetic switches, you're able to adjust the actuation. So if you want a really sensitive press where you're just barely tapping it, you can do that. You can also have a more hefty press if you want to be able to really feel those keys. It's really great in gaming applications if you want to be super fast and sensitive with different keystrokes, but even for typing, there's just something really satisfying about the more analog nature of these switches compared to typical mechanical switches. Outside of the Hall Effect switches though, this has been a really solid keyboard to use. They sent it out to me like 6 weeks ago, so I've been using it for some time. Been really happy with it. It's on Kickstarter right now for $135. I think that is a great value. You have a metal frame with rosewood accents on the side. I think it looks great. You have full RGB backlighting on here. You have the option of 2.4 gigahertz dongle, Bluetooth, or wired, of course. With the Bluetooth, you can switch between different devices, which is really great for me. Having a PC and Mac now, I can switch between both very easily. I did actually switch out the keycaps here. These aren't the stock custom keycaps that it would typically come with. I believe these were called Wheat or something on the Keychron website. I'll be sure to link these as well. I think it's a really great retro look and kind of a bonus item for the list here. If you are in the gaming, I've been testing out this Pulsar XLite V2 Mini. It was the best match for these keycaps. I think this is just a really great retro beige type of look. So check it out if you're interested. I think there's a few more days left on the Kickstarter here. I'm not exactly sure when the full public launch is, but I'll put the info in the description. Next up, we have the BOOX Note Air 3C. This is a 10.3-inch Android tablet with an ePaper e-ink screen. Since I started prepping for this video, I saw MKBHD just recently did a video on the BOOX Palma. If you haven't already seen that, it looks great. I actually got a Palma as well that I'm going to be testing in the coming months, but I was really fascinated by the idea of color e-ink screens. I'm a huge fan of the e-ink, e-paper look. I get a ton of eye strain from extended screen time use. That's the main reason I have to wear glasses. So having something like this that's an e-reader like my Kindle Paperwhite but has a ton of other options and functionality was extremely interesting to me. I've had my eye on this for over a year and I'm just now finally getting to check it out and test it for myself. Going over some of the basics, it's a full aluminum body. It's 5.8 millimeters thick and it measures 7.6 inches across and 8.9 inches tall. It weighs 430 grams, so just under a pound. When you turn it on, it loads into a very simple interface here. You have a library for any books that you might have loaded onto it or articles or, PDFs, anything like that. You have the option to go to the store with their own, free library options and books there. You have a really substantial note system that goes with the built-in stylus. We'll be talking about that in just a minute. You have a little file storage screen here. It comes with 64 gigabytes of storage, but is expandable with micro SD up to 2 terabytes. You have a category for settings and a category library for apps. You know, there are a few built-in default apps here, but you have access to the full Google Play Store. So even outside of the typical use cases for this, you know, taking notes, reading books, you know, reading articles, things like that, you can actually, you know, load on YouTube here, load on social media apps. You know, obviously an ePaper e-ink screen isn't going to be the best for, you know, video playback or media playback, but the fact that they just open this up fully to allow you to do whatever you want with it, I think is really cool. The reading and ebook aspect of this is very straightforward. It works perfectly and as expected, not really much that you're able to mess up there. One extra thing here compared to like my Kindle Paperwhite that I've been used to for the past decade is you can use the stylus and write notes or mark up different pages, which I think is a really fun addition. You have the ability to take notes with a ton of different template options, you know, obviously, you know, ruled paper and grid paper, dot paper, all of that, but they have some templates for like calendars, to-do lists, all of that sort of stuff. On the outside of the screen, they have a handwriting film layer that makes this really pleasant to write on and sketch on. It works really well and feels great. The stylus is really nice, and it is a completely passive stylus too, so it's not something that you need to charge. The other big aspect here that sets it apart is the ability to sketch and draw. You know, I actually went to school for graphic design back in the day. I was never really a strong drawer with like pen and paper though. I messed around with the drawing and sketching a little bit. I definitely don't do it justice. I did see a video of a review from this from an illustrator's perspective, which was really great. Maybe I'll put a link to that in the description as well. But all in all, you know, this thing is definitely a little niche for the price point versus what it does versus what it offers. But at the same time, it's doing something that I haven't really seen from anyone else, at least not executed this well. It's kind of a full-fledged e-reader, but with a ton of extra functionality here. The benefits of an e-ink screen. I almost forgot to mention too, they make it really easy to send, you know, articles or files from your computer as well. So you can kind of have this at the side next to your desk, you know, send something over if you have something really long to read. You can connect a Bluetooth controller here, you know, go through your inbox with an e-ink screen so you don't have eye strain after 4 hours of answering emails. I've definitely been there. So this thing has been really fun to test and use. You know, it might replace my Kindle Paperwhite. I know I talk about that thing so long. I've been waiting for it to die after almost a decade. This might be kicking it to the curb to test this instead. I am going to be checking out the Palma as well, which is kind of a black and white, you know, palm phone-sized version of this that I'm really curious to look into. Let me know down in the comments. Do you have a situation where this would be useful? I'm very curious. I was just too interested by the tech to pass up the chance to try it, and I'd love to hear from you about the topic. Next up is a portable monitor. This is the Zenscreen MB166CR. There are a billion different portable monitors out there, but what really stood out for me with this one was the pricing versus the quality. It comes out to $139. It is a 15.6 inch 60 Hz IPS display. It looks really nice and performs really well in a sea of generic external monitors in this price point. I've tested several over the years and I've always had problems with them. This is the first one that, you know, operates as you'd expect perfectly with really good image quality without any tweaking, just out of the box with good colors working exactly as you want it to. So it's 15.6 inches. It's a USB-C display. It uses DP alt mode. So anything that is able to handle USB-C with DP alt mode, you're able to use it with this. So, you know, different laptops, computers, things like that. Something that I wish I could test, but I don't have an iPhone 15. You could potentially connect this directly to your phone and have display out from your phone on here. Someone might be able to confirm if that works or not in the comments. I'm actually going to be getting the iPhone 16 hopefully in the next month or two so I can test it then. But this would make a really compelling option for a phone-based, you know, workstation setup with a keyboard and a screen, you know, have everything connected into your phone while you're on the go for remote work. Has 250 nits of brightness, you know, definitely not enough for any heavy outdoor, you know, sunny use, but more than enough and plenty bright in, you know, indoor type of conditions in my experience. It only draws a little more than 5 watts as well, so it's not going to suck down the power super fast from anything that you have it plugged into. You have a nice little kickstand on the back to be able to have it stand up on its own. It comes with a nice little carrying case. Like I said, the biggest differentiator here for me was the overall image quality and the colors. They look nice and natural and normal. It's surprisingly tough to come by when you're looking at these really budget portable displays. I've been really happy with it. My only real wish list type of item would be to add the option of HDMI on here as well. That would open up more use cases and more flexibility. USB-C as a single cable option is really nice, but HDMI as a secondary output would be really great too. Definitely the most boring item on the list, but one of the most important. I finally bit the bullet and got myself a UPS. This is the Cyberpower 1000 watt sine wave UPS system. Just a quick breakdown for what this is if you're not familiar. It's essentially a surge protector on steroids. You're able to plug your devices into this, and it has a built-in battery backup. So if you experience any power outages, it'll automatically switch to the built-in battery here, keep your devices running, generally long enough for you to be able to turn them off safely. Really important if you're dealing with delicate electronics. I've actually had a ton of issues with the breaker in my home office here. It's a 15 amp arc fault breaker that keeps tripping under, half of the load it's rated for. It is extremely frustrating and annoying. I have a bunch of hard drives with a bunch of important data. I have it backed up remotely, of course, so if something were to happen, I should still be safe and good to go. I still don't want to run the risk of going through all that hassle though, and aside from the hassle, hard drives are still very expensive. On top of that, if you saw last week's video, I built out my first Windows PC. I wanted to have something to keep that safe and protected as well. I just have an increasing number of delicate tech items in my office that aren't designed to have the power killed repeatedly over and over and over again. Outside of the protection from power outages, this is actually a pure sine wave unit as well. So it takes the power from the wall and essentially kind of cleans it up before it sends it off to your devices. You have an LCD display on the front that shows the load of everything plugged in. If the power goes out, it'll display how much time you have left. I do believe there is software available for this as well. I haven't personally had the need to test it or try it out. Luckily, these have come down in price quite a bit. They're still not cheap and they're still super annoying to buy. One of the most boring tech items you can buy. And this one I ended up getting with an Amazon Prime Day deal a few months ago. I think it was like $180 or something. I just checked on Amazon. It's $220 right now. Definitely worth the investment if you have any, delicate tech in your setup that you don't want to risk, from power outages or crappy power brownouts, anything like that. They also have some sort of insurance here that'll insure up to $500,000 of losses from anything that you have plugged into it. I haven't looked into the details to see how easy that would be to redeem in the case that it does fail, but it is nice that they're confident to have that. Cyberpower has been around for a while. It seems like that and APC are the two most reputable brands. I ended up just going with the Cyberpower because it seemed like a little bit of a better option and was 1,000 watts versus 900 from APC. But I'm sure any pure sine wave option would be good for you. It's worth checking out and investing in, even though it's a huge bummer to do so. But on that somewhat boring note, that is the end of the list. I'd love to hear down in the comments down below if you have any tech you've been testing or using recently, anything interesting. I always tend to go through, through the summer as I'm preparing for my yearly desk update, looking for anything cool or new or different to see what's out there. I feel like I found some fun stuff for this year. I'm going to be working on that video soon. I'm actually going to be taking the next couple of weeks off as well, taking a much needed break. I put out more videos this year in succession than I have in a very long time. My brain is turning to mush. So I've got some trips planned. I'm going to do some gaming while I'm home as well. Just going to have some fun, relax, reset, get to going on the rest of the videos for this year. Thank you all so much for watching though, and I'll talk to you in the next one.